What's up, everybody? It's your girl T from Adventures of Spirits, and I come to you today from Lynchburg, Tennessee. That's right, I got some of my girls with me to take a distillery tour a few hours over from Georgia to the state of Tennessee. Today, we're coming to you from the Jack Daniels Distillery. Here in this video, we'll get to see if the Jack Daniels Distillery is all worth the hype. Was it worth the money? Was it worth the drive? Was it even worth our time? And don't forget, stay tuned at the end of the video to click on a full honest review with the group.
Perfect.
Hey everybody, so I am here at Jack Daniels Distillery in Lynchburg, Tennessee with a few of my friends. We've been talking about coming here for a long time, and we finally got away for the weekend, got everyone's schedules together to come in and actually explore and experience the Jack Daniels tour. Now, also stay tuned for the next video because we're also going to the Uncle Nearest Distillery. So if you've ever watched any of my previous whiskey videos, you have heard me talk about Jack Daniels and Uncle Nearest and the connection. So what we're hoping to hear in both of the tours this weekend is how those two names are connected together and how Uncle Nearest played a role in the Jack Daniels legacy names. My friends are laughing at me because of my cool gadget I bought to wear my camera around my neck for hands-free.
Jack never told anybody. He just walked in 1887. He walked in and says, we're going to start putting number 7 on the bottle. They didn't ask any questions. They said, okay, and we started doing it. I'll tell you, if you remind me, when we get into the tasting room, I'll tell you my theory. I mean, I've heard some wild, really wild stuff, but, you know, I heard 7th number, 7th recipe. None of that. Actually, he only had 2 recipes. He had Dan Call's, and then after he buys the still, he changes it just slightly. Initially, Dan Call used 84, 8, and 8, 84% corn, 8% barley, 8% rye. When Jack buys it, he changes it to 80, 12, and 8. In my personal opinion, he changed it to 12% barley because that's the conversion to it. It converts to cornstarch and sugar. I think Jack's thinking, whether this is true or not, his thinking, I believe, if he added more of the barley, he could create a higher yield because he could convert more to cornstarch with more barley. And of course, since 1866, that's what we've been, is at 80, 12, and 8. But don't let me forget, I'll tell you what I think my theory is. So,
how many wives did he have?
None. He never married.
Oh, I was going to say wife number 7.
He asked Clara, I can't think of her last name. This was in the mid-1880s. He asked a young lady, she was about half his age. He was in his mid-30s. She was about 16 or 17 years old. I would say basically his only love, I guess if you could say that. He asked her daddy to marry her. Daddy said, hell no, you ain't marrying my daughter. So anyway, I think he always loved her, even for the rest of his life, but he never married. I think that's one of the reasons he didn't, because he was not allowed to marry her. Part of it. So somewhere around the age 9, 10, or 11 years old, Jack decides he's going to leave home. He does. Within a year, he actually comes to live with the Call family on their farm. Well, Dan Call actually welcomed Jack into his home because he needed the help. He had the farm, and he had a general store. So Jack worked both of those on a daily basis once he started living with that family. Well, in addition to that, Dan was also a full-time Lutheran minister, so he had a congregation he was concerned with day to day as well. Well, in addition to all that, he had a still on that property. Well, Jack immediately became interested in that still as a young boy. But this is before the Civil War. So the day-to-day care of the call still, it was entrusted to an enslaved man named Nathan Nearest Green. So it was actually Nearest who was the one that brought Jack in and worked side by side with that young boy to teach him what would eventually prove to be his life passion. Then when Jack is about 31 or 32 years old, he's looking for a new water source. Well, he finds it right here at this cave spring. The mouth of this spring, the water comes out at a constant 56 degrees all year long. So when we turn that corner and start getting close, you may feel a difference in temperature change when we get up there. And I can tell you this, if you've ever had a drop of Jack Daniel's whiskey in your life, you've had some of that cave spring water. That water's been used to make every drop of mash that's ever been produced since Jack stepped foot on this property. So, you want to see what you've been drinking all these years? Let's go see what we got. So when Jack came here to this cave spring, he was just given a gift from Mother Nature, simplest way to describe it. And I told you we still use it today. The source where that artesian spring originates for us is a little over a mile deep. We pull our water from about midway. From there into the first building we're going to head into, where fermentation and distillation happens. This statue of Jack actually shows Jack larger than life. Shows him in like 5'8", 5'9". Jack was actually 5'2".
Ooh, wow.
And he wore a size 4 man shoe, so he's very small in physical stature. He'd come about right.
That's why they ain't let him marry his daughter.
Yeah, I don't want them little bitty kids, grandkids.
Right.
All right, but he was a lifelong bachelor. He never married, never had any children. So when he passes away, he wills his distillery to his favorite nephew, Lem Motlow. Lem is instrumental that we're alive today. Without Lem, there's no way we could have survived. Because when Lem took over here, Tennessee had already enacted prohibition here in our state. So he's got this distillery for about 29 years, not being able to use a drop of that water to make any whiskey here. So he initially goes down to Birmingham, Alabama. He's down in Birmingham for a couple of years, then Alabama decides to go dry. So he leaves and goes up to St. Louis, Missouri. He's up in St. Louis for about 6 years. Well, then federal prohibition is enacted. At that point, he's got to come back home. He ain't got nowhere else to go. So when he does, he opens up a hardware and general store in the Lynchburg town square. Well, he does it so he can provide for his family and hang on to the distillery until he can start making whiskey again. Finally, 1938, Tennessee lifts its laws on prohibition, so Lem starts back. He runs the distillery until he passes away in 1947. Upon his passing, he wills it to his 4 boys. The 4 Motlow brothers run the distillery from 1947 until 1956. Well, by 1956, the boys think they need to sell. They have a problem created over a window of about 5 or 6 years there, from about 1950 to 56. That problem was actually started by Frank Sinatra. Comes here to the cave spring, we naturally asked Nearest to come with him. Nearest was much older by this time, so he didn't want to make a 5 or 6 mile trip every day to do something he had done for years. So he basically tells Jack, look, I'm old, I'm staying back here on the call phone and retired. So instead, Jack brings George with him. So in the 150 plus years since Jack and Nearest started making whiskey together, there's always been a member of the Green family and Jack's family working side by side here at this distillery. Family has always been extremely important to us here. We actually think it's the best means of quality control. That's why still today we have 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th generational employees on both sides of those families that are still actively working side by side today. The last numbers I was told, somewhere between 60 and 65% of our employees are generational employees. Trust me, they do like to keep it in the family. I'm a 2nd generation employee myself. I told you Frank had it on stage with him every night when he was performing. I can promise you that's true. I absolutely know that. Well, I was named after my uncle. He was the first salesman that Jack Daniels ever hired here. He worked here for 60 years. He started in 1953, and he was here until 2013. He was very close friends with Mr. Sinatra. Now, all the stuff you see, this is all the oldest building on the property. This is the older one that predates Prohibition right here. So everything you see in here, this is Jack and Lim stuff, with the exception, of course, the lights and that air conditioner, and in some of the newer pictures. But everything else, that's their stuff that he used every day. Now, Lim started working for Jack when he was 17 years old. He was an excellent businessman. So he did all the bookwork. He was always the first one here at the office. He'd open up that safe, he'd get the bookwork out, he'd sit over at that desk, he'd start the distillery for the day. Well, Jack was the original salesman and marketer. He always stayed out late at night, so he always came in later in the day. He actually owned 2 saloons in the town square. He was at virtually every single night selling and marketing his product. Well, one morning in 1905, Jack decided he wanted to come in early. He wanted to get something out of that safe, get out of town, and then get back in town before it got dark. So he beat them here that morning. He comes in, fools around trying to open up that safe. Very rarely did he ever do that anymore, but he had forgotten the combination. So out of frustration, he hauls off and he kicks it, and it breaks his big toe on his left foot. Lim comes in about 5 minutes later at his normal time. Well, he naturally opened it right up because he did it every single day. So Jack just gets what he needs out of there, and he hobbles on off. He hobbles around on that foot for months. He never says anything or does anything about it. He's just assuming eventually the pain's going to go away. Well, it never does. Eventually it gets so severe he's going to have to go see a doctor. When he gets there, of course, the doctor confirms, well, yes, you've broken the toe, but that's no longer the issue. Jack had waited so long that gangrene had now set into that foot. So over the course of about a 6-year period, Jack endures amputation after amputation. First the toe, then the foot, eventually just below the knee. Finally, one last ditch effort to try to save his life, to cut his leg off just below the hip. But it's no use. In 1911, Jack eventually dies of blood poisoning and complications. It all started about 6 years earlier from kicking that safe. Right?
Kicking the safe.
So that's our murder weapon. Now, I will tell you the moral of that story. We try to live out as much as we can now. Don't ever go into work early because it just might kill you. So. Let's go see some moonshine getting made. Step 1 is fermentation. We're going to take our 3 grains, corn, barley, and rye, grind them up into a fine powder, add cave spring water to it, slow cook it for about 1 hour and 45 minutes. When that's done, that's our mash. Then we're going to take a set batch, old mash from our previous batch, add that in there to it. If you ever made sourdough bread, it's the exact same concept, it's just on a larger scale as all. Then we take our own proprietary yeast, add that in there. A lot more cave spring water, dump that in, mix it all together. Put it in a fermenting vat for 3 to 5 days. Here's what happens during that 3 to 5 day period. And again, it's exactly the same way that Jack did it. There's no chemicals in this entire process. Everything is natural. That's why the barley is so important. The barley has an enzyme that will naturally convert cornstarch into sugar. The proprietary yeast will then begin attacking those sugars. That's going to start a natural chemical reaction and create that alcohol, and it gives us a byproduct of CO2. Step 2 is distillation. That tall, thin building right there behind us, that's where our stills are at. We have 4 100% copper stills up there, 2 small and 2 large. The 2 small stills each produce 15 gallons of whiskey per minute. The 2 large stills each produce 40 gallons of whiskey per minute. All 4 of those stills, they're continuous flow column stills. They're 40 foot tall, they're lined with copper plates, they look like big huge columns. Every 18 inches all the way down to 40 foot of that still. So here's what we'll do. Once that mash ferments, we take it, pump it through some pipes up to the top of that still, we're going to dump it in. It's going to start sifting its way down through those copper plates. As it does, we'll take steam, shoot steam into the bottom. Steam's going to rise. When it comes in contact with the mash, it boils off that alcohol, turning it into a vapor. Alcohol vapors are going to rise to the top. When they get there, they're caught, condensed, and then cooled. Once those vapors cool, they're going to turn back into a liquid. That liquid's 140 proof moonshine we'll see coming out through that trial box when we get up there in just a minute. 2021, we dedicated this barrel house to George Green, Jack's friend. This plaque you see over here to your left, this is the list of all the Green descendants that have worked here in the past, or they're still presently employed here with us today. Inside here, we do have a few hundred barrels that are maturing in the back side of this barrel house. So when we go into the back side, we're not supposed to be taking pictures here, but once I get us into the tasting area, you're welcome to take all the pictures you want once we get in there.
Now we are in the bottle shop. Ooh, my head looked a mess. It was hot in that bottle, and those fermenting and stale pot areas and stuff. It was hot in there. I couldn't work in there. But we are in the bottle shop. Now you already know I had to come get some bottles, right? It makes no sense to come to Jack Daniel's Distillery and not get any bottles. So let's see what they have. Whew. So we're in the gift shop. It's called the hardware shop. And they have a lot of apparel and gifts here. So let's see what they got going on. Well, our tour has come to an end, but we did enjoy it. For more information in reference to the Jack Daniels tour, check the description section within this video. And if you haven't done so, hit that like, subscribe button for notifications, and stay tuned for the honest review from the group. Thank you for watching.